All right, RJ, Ronnie Francis does it again. On the one hand, he's distracting us with 3 interviews of Rick Tocchet. Meanwhile, the other hand is signing Dave Hakstol to be the first Seattle Kraken head coach.
Yep, with his trademark secrecy, Ron Francis has done it again. The Kraken named Dave Hakstol as the first head coach in franchise history this morning. Hakstol was coach at the University of North Dakota for 11 years, then the Philadelphia Flyers from 2015 to 2018, and most recently, he was an assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, looking at his track record, Dylan, what are your takeaways about what he brings to be the coach?
Right. So first, North Dakota. He arrived in North Dakota. He took a good program and he made it a truly great one. During his time at North Dakota, they were a regular at Final Fours. They were constantly winning conference championships and stuff. They were really fantastic, which is why he was one of the first kind of college coaches to go ahead and make that jump to the NHL. A lot of the college coaches that we've seen make that jump, they actually happened after him, even though they might have lasted in their jobs a little longer than he did in Philly. So that's the first thing. In Philadelphia, he did a lot of things really well. During his time in Philadelphia, those were the years that Claude Giroux, Jakub Voracek, Shane Gostisbehere, they were all having career years. They were putting up, 100-point seasons in Giroux's case. They were offensively a great juggernaut that was able to compete with the likes of anybody in the Eastern Conference all of those seasons, right? His style activated offensive defensemen like Shane Gostisbehere in a way that Philly hadn't seen before and hasn't really seen since. Part of the reason the Flyers hired him was to help develop a lot of their young prospects, which he did with Sean Couturier fantastically. He turned him into a Selke winner. A lot of the two-way play that we see from Couturier now was all developed under Hakstol and during those seasons. And the other thing was they actually played really good defensively. This gets lost because of how horrible their goaltending was all of those seasons. But defensive metrics wise, at least at even strength, and I'll get to the penalty kill stuff in a moment, at even strength, they were actually one of the top teams in the league under Dave Hakstol. And I think that surprises a lot of people because, again, goaltending wasn't really good back then. They let in a ton of goals. Their goal differential was always terrible. But, as far as the metrics go, analytics wise, the stuff they were doing should have been working. It's just that their goaltending was failing them. And then I'll get into some of the negatives now, which was the penalty kill was also a major, major problem for them. They always had like the league worst penalty kill under him a couple times. They were always flirting with it. They're always at the bottom of the barrel. Some of that was on his assistant coaching that they kind of kept rotating through trying to figure that out. But at the end of the day, Buck's got to stop with him, right? The other thing that kind of led to his firing, besides that stuff, I said the goaltending was bad. There was a feeling that he kind of ran goaltenders into a ground. If you remember a lot of those seasons for the Flyers, those Brian Elliott years, the Michael Neuwirth years, those guys were getting hurt all the time. They couldn't stay healthy, or they were just burning out in general. And the idea was that people felt that Dave Hakstol was leaving him in too long. He was playing them too many games, too many back-to-back nights, all that kind of stuff. And it just wore those goalies down, and that was part of the problem for them. The other big thing that really led to his firing was they felt that he wasn't helping the young players develop enough. The Travis Konechny's, the Ivan Provorovs, the Nolan Patricks. Now, at the time, you could certainly say that because none of them were turning into what we thought they were, right? You're talking about a 2nd overall pick in Nolan Patrick, an 8th overall pick, I believe, in Ivan Provorov, another 1st rounder in Konechny, and they weren't really showing that potential. So that was really the main reason why Dave Hakstol was let go by the Flyers. However, Nolan Patrick still has not developed. Ivan Provorov still has not developed. And Travis Konechny has just turned into an average kind of player. So how much of that was really on Hakstol not developing them when, like I said, he developed Couturier into something we never really thought he was going to be. And he's been a fantastic player for the Flyers. Versus how much of it is just that those guys might just be busts, right? Like, I think at this point, it's kind of safe to say that Nolan Patrick is basically a bust as a 2nd overall pick. I don't believe that Dave Hakstol ruined him in the 1 year he had him, and that all of the problems since have been because of that, especially when points-wise, he was actually best under Hakstol that he's been, like, his entire career, basically. He's off by 1 point. So, I think it's going to be a really interesting hire for Seattle, but that's kind of been his track record in those spots. Why don't you tell us about what he's done with the Maple Leafs?
Right. So after his tenure with the Flyers, he joined the Maple Leafs as an assistant coach. And in that time, his main responsibilities have been defense and the penalty kill. So I know the Leafs have had their struggles, but watching them this season, clearly those areas were not the problem. Defense and penalty kill were in fact much improved since he got there, and those were kind of two areas the Leafs identified as things they needed to fix a couple years ago when they brought him in. And he's done an excellent job at that. And it kind of shows what Hakstol is best at. It's his ability to kind of focus in and develop a certain area of the game or a certain player and really improve it. And I think that kind of says something about the bigger picture of this coaching hire and what Ron Francis was really looking for and what he values. Looking at the whole coaching hiring process, you've got certain candidates like Rick Tocchet, who seems like he was a big front runner for a while. You've got Hakstol, and you look at a lack of interest also in guys like maybe a Gerard Gallant or John Tortorella, or these big names with a lot of wins and that sort of thing, where it's clear to me that Ron Francis values development and communication for a hire like this over a winning track record as an NHL head coach. Looking at a lot of these names that were considered, at the end of the coaching search, a lot of them hadn't gotten past the first round of the playoffs as an NHL head coach. And looking at that, it's, might seem like a head scratcher, but you look at the attributes they do have in common. Rick Tocchet, he was known for his communication and, his ability to reach certain players. Hakstol, he's known for his development ability to develop young players. Ron Francis knows he's going to have a young roster. I mean, we've done our projected roster time and time again. Any way that it comes out, it's a young roster. We know that's what the Kraken roster is going to look like. It's going to be young. And so Francis knows that too. And he knows that you need a coach where you can expect those players to develop and improve year after year. And Hakstol's the kind of coach that can do that. So while he's not the big name hire that a lot of fans were looking for, he fits exactly what Ron Francis was kind of trying to do with what the organization is going to be. Don't make the mistake of thinking that, Ron Francis struck out here. He got exactly what he was looking for.